Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's great to virtually see some of you all this afternoon. We're really excited for our program today. We're just going to wait another minute or two to get started. It's 3:28, so we'll wait about 2 minutes and then we will get started on our first debate program. While we are waiting, if you all can do me a favor and rename yourself, your first name, and then your team side. So if you're, Anthony affirmative or Anthony opposing, you can rename yourself. The way you rename yourself is you just mouse over your screen there and hit the rename button or under participants. And then you can rename yourself, your first name and your side. If you are not sure or have any questions, just message my colleague, Eric. He is on the line, standing by, ready to help you all. All right. Looking good. And I know we have some students that are or might be observing as well today. So if you are going to be observing, you can also rename yourself, your first name and then observer, just so we know that you are going to be in an observer role today. Looking good, looking good.
I'm seeing a Noah both affirmative and opposing. Let's see, we only have one Noah registered today for the affirmative team. So if you are the Noah opposing, if you mind just shooting me a message in the chat, that would be appreciated.
All right, cool. We'll just wait, let's see, just a couple more seconds. It looks like we have all of our participants changed, so that's great. Okay. Perfect. Okay, all right, so I imagine we're still waiting on a couple of students, but I'll go ahead and get started with just our opening remarks so that we can begin on time today. So first and foremost, welcome to all of the students, teachers, and observers that are participating in our October debate program. We are really excited to launch this brand new initiative for our high school students this year. Of course, the topic that we're going to be examining today couldn't be any more timely. If you're not aware, the World Affairs Council's mandate is that democracy demands discourse. We couldn't think of a better way to execute that mandate than a debate. We really hope that these programs will help sort of stretch your thinking, also help practice your public speaking skills. And of course, the research component is a key part of today's program. So we hope you had some time to check out the resources that we vetted and selected for you all before today's debate program. So let's go ahead and get started with our opening remarks here. So as you all know, our debate prompt for today is, given the state of COVID-19, should the United States primarily focus on taking an isolationist approach and combating the virus at home, or should the United States take an internationalist approach and coordinate with allies and international organizations to fight the spread of COVID-19? So all of you have been assigned one of two teams, either affirmative or opposing. And the affirmative team is arguing today that based on our studies and research, yes, the United States should take an isolationist approach and focus on combating the virus at home. The other side is opposing, and they're arguing that based on our studies and research, no, the United States should not take an isolationist approach, but should adopt an internationalist approach and coordinate with allies and international organizations to fight the spread of COVID. So I did just want to put on the screen our teams for today. I'll have Eric kind of go through for attendance purposes and make sure we have everyone here. There might be a couple people logging on a little bit later or coming in. I see Micah just joined the waiting room too, so that's on team opposing. Once Micah comes in, he can change his name to the opposing side. So you can see who your teammates are. When it becomes time, you'll move into breakouts with these team members. So just wanting you to kind of see who is on your team before we get started. So let's talk a little bit about the agenda for today. So our welcoming remarks are going to go until about 3:40, 3:45. And then we will dismiss you all into our first portion of the program this evening, which is the opening statements. And I'll go into what each one of these sections means in just a second. So opening statements, you'll have time for each section to prepare before actually coming back to the room and delivering your speeches. So you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for each one of these sections in your breakout rooms before coming back here. So opening statements are first. We're going to have a certain order for that, which I'll go over as well. And then those are going to be followed by the rebuttal section, another chunk of time devoted for that before we kind of end the program with the closing arguments. And then towards the end, we'll have about 10 minutes for our judges, who I'll introduce in just a second, to deliberate, and they will choose a winning side of the debate today and also confer who our outstanding and honorable mention debaters will be. So your debate performance will definitely be assessed by our judges today, and we encourage you all to have fun as you go throughout the program this evening. So just a couple of tips and tricks. For the opening, rebuttal, and closing arguments, each team may use a maximum of 2 students per section. Each section will require that you use 2 new team members when possible. So I would suggest one of the things you can do as a team to strategize is if you really have some strong speakers or some people that feel really strongly about their ability to perform well during the debate, you might want to save them for the closing as opposed to having them go first. But it's completely up to you all to kind of determine what your strategy is going to be. The judges will be looking for diversification of speakers. So, while we kind of can't make you choose 2 new students every time, it definitely bodes well on your team to win the argument if you can choose new speakers every time. A 5-minute speech is what you get for your speeches every time. It's a lot longer than you think. So think about dividing your group into sub-teams, and you can each choose a section or choose a part of the argument to kind of work on. And we'll be keeping track of time as we go today for you all. And then we also have a debate note-taking document, which my colleague will share with you all in a second. Each side has a document that you can keep track of the different notes for each other side. Obviously making a good speech is also not just about being a good speaker, but also being a good listener and being able to kind of respond to points that the other side poses in order to kind of poke holes in the other team's argument. But of course, remember that a good speech is fact-informed. It's also persuasive and logical. So take into consideration, counter arguments, explaining why your position is stronger than the other to use these counter arguments. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about judges, and I'll introduce our judges for today as well. So the 2 judges that we have today will only view the statements from each group. And they will not actually be a part of your team discussion. So when you're in your breakout rooms, you'll just be with your team members and either myself or Eric as kind of the breakout facilitator. A winning team will be recognized for outstanding debate performance. So what are they looking for? They're looking for quality teamwork. That goes along with what I said in terms of swapping speakers every round. They're looking for well-organized and structured arguments. Also going to be taking note of the confidence that you display, the presentation of your arguments, of course, clarity of voice, your body language, and interaction with the audience. I know we are all doing this virtual, but we are going to be looking for those components as well. Grammatical correctness and range of technical and academic vocabulary is really key. If you have time during your breakouts to practice your speech, I think that's a really great way of making sure you can kind of check off some of these boxes. And of course, that your teammates reference and counter opposing teams' arguments. So that's, using that note-taking sheet and really making sure that you keep track of what the other team is saying and not just introducing new facts every single round. And of course, providing examples and credible evidence to back up your points. I think all of us know the best speakers are the ones that can, pull out facts and statistics and use them strategically to their benefit. I think we all have seen folks do that really well and folks do that not so well. So keeping that into consideration well will definitely make for a very strong debate performance. And then lastly, I do want to introduce our two judges for today. They are on our meeting here today. We have Haley Clemson. Haley's an education intern with us. We're really excited to have her on both sides of the preparation for this program, but then also getting to kind of see the fruits of her labor in the research that you all have done to prepare for today's program. And we have Joe Berquist, one of our education board members, who's also joining us as a judge today. Joe is a really strong advocate for our education programs and a great friend of our education department. So we're really excited to have our judges today join us for the program. Okay, so I have a couple minutes left in our opening remarks section. So I do want to go over each section in depth just so you all know kind of what to expect. So the first section we're going to break out into at 3:45 is going to be our opening statements. And that's when you'll be in your first breakout room. You'll have a chance to draft your opening statement that's going to defend your side of the argument. So students will receive a reminder from us in the last 5 minutes to come together and synthesize your group's opening remarks. But do remember before you leave that breakout to have at least 2 representatives ready to present the group's opening statement. And remember that an opening statement introduces the topic in a way that supports your position. So some students might have already come with some of these thoughts already typed out, but if not, remember that the last sentence of your introduction should be your thesis or main objective. And then after you have time to prepare those statements, you'll each have 5 minutes to present to the at-large group back in this main room. So again, you'll have a chance to take notes. We'll have a virtual countdown timer to keep track of time as well. And then most importantly, the presentation order will be that the affirmative team will go first, followed by the opposing team. Okay. So let's talk about the rebuttal real quickly. So the rebuttal is the second section. And of course, students representing each group will finalize a rebuttal that will represent the group as a whole. You'll elect 2 new representatives for this section, and you'll have to respond and criticize the arguments that the opposing side has presented in their opening statement. So a really great thing to think about is, you want to sort of prove that the other side's arguments don't make sense. It's not really a time to introduce new things, but you'll want to provide sound counter arguments to what they presented in the opening. Again, you'll have 5 minutes to present these with 2 new members. And we will also have that timer on the screen for you to keep track of time. And we're flipping the order for the second section. So the opposing team will go first for the rebuttal, followed by team affirmative. And our last section is the closing arguments. So you're going to once again have some time in your breakout room for one last time to provide a closing statement that reaffirms your position. The closing argument should emphasize the strongest points that were made throughout the entire debate. So make sure you include facts to support your position and address any counter arguments that were brought up during the rebuttal. Again, you'll have 2 new students to represent this section and deliver a closing argument towards the end of today's program. And then we will switch groups one last time with the affirmative group going first, followed by the opposing group. And then after this time, we'll have the judges into a separate breakout so that they can deliberate, and you'll have a chance to do a short evaluation before we announce our winning team and our outstanding and honorable mention student debaters. So that's all of the opening remarks that we have for you all. We have just a couple minutes before we launch into our opening statement section of the program. Does anyone have any questions before we begin?
Hi, I do.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I have it down, when you say two new people, so there's no one that can speak again after they've already gone for their group?
No, so the way we structure the debate is to encourage the most amount of teamwork as possible. So
Mhm.
what I would say is strategically think about who you want to go when. If your team is like missing people, or you have folks that really aren't that interested in doing the speaking role, you can reuse people. But I would say as a first resort to make sure that you try to use new people each time. The judges are looking at that and making sure that that's a piece of their judging criteria to see, new representatives each round come to the table. And you don't have to have two students, it can be just one student.
Kristen, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in real quick. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to drop into the chat in 1 second links to Team Affirmative and Team Opposing's Google Drive. Each of you has a Google Drive set up with a note-taking sheet in it. You are more than welcome to use that note-taking sheet or create any other documents that you need in order to organize yourselves. I'll be placing those links in the chat in 1 second. In addition, if you have any questions at all during the actual debate program, feel free to send a private message to either myself, Eric Bombaka, or Kristen, whose name is Wackfilla right now, and we'll try and get to your questions as soon as possible. Either Kristen or I will likely be in one of your breakout sessions as well, so we can answer questions directly in there, although we might be hopping in and out just a little bit. But that's all that I have, Kristen. I'm going to place those links into the chat now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, I did get a message from someone. I am recording the debate program today. So just in case I do have to make that statement so that the program will be recorded. So we won't be recording the breakout section. So whatever you discuss in your breakout is not going to be recorded, but the speeches will whenever we're back in this main room. That was a good question. Okay, any last questions before we dive into our breakouts? And then just to make sure everyone knows time, let me just go back. Yeah, so we have until 4 o'clock, so 15 minutes to work on your statements in your first breakout. And then from 4 o'clock to 4:10, we'll do our presentation of speeches. So, okay, Eric, I think we are all set to go into breakouts.
Okay, good luck, everybody, and see you in a few minutes.
You'll be getting a request from Eric to join a breakout. And if you message anyone, you can only message those in your breakout. That's another thing I probably should have said earlier. But see you in your breakout rooms.
Yes. Okay. Haley and Joe, you guys are unassigned, so you'll be staying in this room. Kristen, I'm going to assign you to Team Affirmative.
Eventually win this. That is the strategy I think we should go for. And just real quick, who doesn't want to speak? Like, who feels like they don't want to say anything? Just say I in the chat, or Okay. So since we have established that basically everyone's okay with speaking, how do you guys want to divide this up?
Whoa. Okay, so you're assuming that we're all gonna go with your document. You want no other input, just your document.
I'm okay with I'm okay with input.
Okay, yeah,
but
it's not whether you're okay with it though. You're not in charge.
I know.
That's not what he's doing. He's not trying to be hostility. He was giving a suggestion because he's confident in what he's written. So he's saying if you'd like to go with this, he thinks that's be the best move. He's not being hostile.
I'm perfectly fine with if everybody can agree with taking like just a couple minutes to review the document and then add any other points we feel we need to emphasize or revisit.
Yeah, I had a document too. I think it'd be best for the team if any of you guys have prepared one as well. It'd be great if we could read it, because the more points that we can gather, the better our argument will be.
Sounds.
So basically, just to make sure we're reading both and then trying to like collab with what we have for each topic.
Yeah, let's see if we can let's read it and let's see if we can get the best points from each document
Okay.
and try to use all of those to make a great opening statement.
Mhm.
And so we can completely stop them from doing
Right.
anything to
Like you
harm us
said.
in
Okay.
particular. Mhm.
So
Okay, so how should
I just
sorry,
clicked
you were
on
saying something?
Olivia's document. It says I need to request accent. Could
Mhm.
you shade access?
Yeah.
Could you change
Oh,
these?
how do I do that? Sorry.
It should check your Gmail and then it should send you an email saying this
Well,
person has
it'd be more efficient.
requested
It'd be
access.
more
Oh, I'm changing it. Okay, I see it. I can make it public.
Yeah.
All right.
So should I make everyone able to be an editor?
I'd recommend just kind of keeping as viewer just so there's no mistakes and no one accidentally does anything.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna have to copy and paste it into my public Gmail account. It's not letting me share it because I'm using my school one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I think one point we should definitely emphasize, and we're seeing it right now in a lot of campaign advertisements, is the need to, and it's mentioned in this article, one of the three, how we should kind of remove the incredible importance that is China in the manufacturing world. And I think we should strongly talk about how there should be a revival in American manufacturing jobs, because as we've seen because of COVID, there are 5 million lost jobs. And if we're to reopen and we don't take care of that, our economy is still going to falter. So I think without openly without trying to use some anti-Chinese rhetoric, because that's the last thing you want to do. Just explain we need to break away from Chinese trade and manufacturing and focus on.
Okay, that's understandable. So let's all read these documents and pick out the best arguments from each so we can, combine them into one solid.
Anthony, I was reviewing yours. I like the point you made about since when Greece's economy collapsed, the value of the euro completely changed and other countries felt that damage. I made a similar point. I wrote, quote, China was the first country to endure the menaces of this virus. The United States economy collapsed synchronously, exposing the fragility of the seams that connect our worlds.
That's a good point.
So I just wanted to say that because I've only really gotten through Anthony's and Ryan's, and then I try to compare it to what I wrote. What I'm mainly seeing is that our main idea as far as the thesis or the opening statement is that America should focus on ourselves and put all our resources and energy into building ourselves up before we stress or really strain what we have to help out other countries. So I was kind of wondering if I can just try to keep it in that idea, and maybe I can open if you guys are comfortable with that.
Sure,
Because
that's
as
fine.
far as what I was able to accommodate to, I was really only able to focus as far as the beginning. So if you agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds good.
Did anyone have any thoughts on how an isolationist approach can actually increase the efficiency of a vaccine production? I
wasn't able to really get anything down for that, but if I had to take an educated guess for that, I think isolationism, if we were the first to create the vaccine, it would possibly have an effect on our national pride. So it would make people really want to start trying to focus on just making that vaccine and saving our own country. And I feel that it will definitely have an uptick in production.
Great.
My main point about the vaccine production was that in 2007, there was a huge recall of toys made from China because they contained lead and children were getting dangerously ill. And also, China tried to cover up the COVID-19 pandemic, and by the time they came clean, it had spread to the entire world. Why would we trust them to make a vaccine? We can't even trust them to tell us when thousands of their citizens are dying. And like, what if the vaccine has lead in it? You know, just I know that's stupid, but like, who knows where the vaccines are going to be produced? The factories there are horrible. Like, it's not sanitary. The working conditions are awful. There's like 5-year-olds who are like making clothes. How do we know how the vaccine is going to be produced? The government is not trustworthy. So I think that we should put that out there, because why would we want to accept a vaccine from the people who caused the pandemic? Also, they did cause it because of the meat markets and the lack of regulations there. I just don't think we should accept anything coming out of the country. I mean, like, not really. This is just for the sake of the
Oh, no. That's a real good point, Matter, actually. Because how would we be able to trust other nations to make a vaccine that adheres to our personal standards of regulations regarding lead and other chemicals? How can we trust them to do that when they have widely different regulations in Europe or in China?
I argued that we have a unique economic environment in the United States because we're one of the few countries that don't resist pressures to regulate price controls on pharmaceutical companies. And because of this, we are a leader in scientific development, and we are a leader in developing life-saving drugs. And I argued that since we don't regulate these kinds of things as much as other countries do, we incentivize this kind of development, because in Europe, they have watered down patent laws. So if you were to do your own, if you were to spend a lot of money and a lot of time doing research for some kind of drug, another company could just pretty much steal that that formula. And I argued that disincentivized scientific innovation.
That's a good point. So are we going to have anything about like the other benefits of becoming isolationist? Because I have one about the military budget and how like reducing our dramatic military presence in the entire world could greatly benefit our education system. I have multiple points about how our education system is one of the worst out of the most developed countries. And you know, if we fuel our education more, like the classical definition of isolationism was for America was not getting involved in other countries, because we could set a better example for democracy without getting in war. And I feel like we should look at that now, because like, if you think about us getting involved in Afghanistan and trying to like set up elections there and like be like the invisible hand trying to like arrange how that country, like how their government unfolded, or like how the election unfolded, that's just like not how it should go. We should be focusing on our own country and improving our own.
So I agree with that. Years like the evolution of American isolationism article constantly argues that the majority of Americans have no interest in interventionism, where we just like we try and fix everything in the world for the sake of quote unquote democracy or oil, however you see fit. But anyway, we have 4 minutes. I think we should get to start writing this opening statement.
I just
Destiny,
wanted to,
can we see your
Destiny,
opening statement?
Yeah,
could you like paste it in the chat?
What I have, and then you guys can tell me if I need to add anything. Okay.
sorry.
Coronavirus has left countries, cities, and families extremely weak and fragile. It is seen that to come back from this, it will take almost everything we have, such as energy, money, and commitment. When choosing to ally with other countries, we are also taking on their specific troubles and could be stretching ourselves thin. Keeping to ourselves, focusing on our people, and prioritizing our homes is in this country's best interest and needs to be done first. Isolation helps cure COVID, so isolationism will help cure our country. Okay. Any more? Because I feel like there might need to be more.
I just wanted to add something. Mm-hmm. Also, internationalism increased because you're funding more into other countries' development, you are increasing your dependency on that country. And you could think of it as kind of economic imperialism. Because the more money you're handing off to somebody, or the more money that you're receiving from another country to fund your own research and all that, it basically puts you in more and more debt. And you get to a point where you can't repay that debt because of all that money you had to give out to fund your own stuff. So I feel like isolationism, while you can cut back on certain things and get more money, globalism has the problems that it increases your overall debt and your deficit, which overall causes you to have to cut back on social programs and things that help your own people. That's just something.
Okay. Should we just have one person do the opening? Wait, could someone, oh, sorry. Something in the chat.
Well, I don't know. How are we going to do this? Like making a completely new opening statement, or are we just kind of, is like one person going to read some of what they have and try to go off of the ideas that other people
I like Destiny's opening statement, so I think it would be best for her to read hers off and then maybe add some of the things that we put here. Let me create.
So from what you said, I said internationalism is increasing our dependence on other countries, along with creating a debt which leaves us longingly finding ways to resolve our problems. I'm trying to find a better way to say that, but I was going to put that right after when I say, when choosing to ally with other countries, we are also taking on their specific troubles and could be stretching ourselves thin. What do you guys think?
I feel like, I don't know. I mean, we only have 1 minute left, but like, it doesn't super connect to the prompt. I mean, like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But like, I don't know. If you have time, throw something in about COVID-19 and like how China has demonstrated themselves to be untrustworthy and we shouldn't rely on them or something like that.
I feel like if we throw in China, that's kind of like specifying a certain country when our whole point is trying to avoid all of them. So like I'm iffy on that specific point because I'm trying to keep it as far as like we're trying to keep to ourselves.
Could me and Destiny go for this?
Yeah, I definitely need your help. Okay. Would you like to go first, and then maybe I can just bring in the little parts that I have?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Are you? Okay, do we have everyone back?
Yep.
All righty, great. Okay, so we have now gone into our section of presenting our opening statements. So my colleague Eric is going to, in the chat, be our timekeeper. So he'll post in the chat when each side has 2 minutes remaining and when each side has 1 minute remaining. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, awesome. So just a quick reminder about the presentation order. Affirmative is going to go first, followed by opposing. So let's go ahead and get into it. Affirmative, once you begin, your clock will start. Oh, you have 5 minutes total. That was a good question. And just keep your eye on the chat, the people that are presenting, for, to know when your time has lapsed.
All right. Britannia defines isolationism as national policy of avoiding political or economic entanglements with other countries. Merriam-Webster defines globalism as a national policy of treating the whole world as a proper sphere for political influence. Based on our research, we argue that to address the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. should take an isolationist approach rather than allow foreign countries to demonstrate international aggression that threaten our sovereignty. In March of 2020, it was globalism that launched the developed world into a financial crisis. China, an economic superpower, contributes more to globalism than any other country. China has coerced several countries into interdependent economic relationships, including the United States. China was the first country to endure the menaces of this virus, but the United States economy collapsed synchronously, exposing the fragility of the seams that connect our world. As of 2018, we operate at a trade deficit with China of over $600 billion, a 10.9% increase from 2017. This proliferating deficit increases our dependence on China and makes us more vulnerable to collapse from a foreign recession, as demonstrated of March of 2020. Even during times of peace, the United States endorses international accords that don't contribute to American interests. We contribute 22% of the United Nations budget, despite comprising a mere 5% of the world's population. China only contributes 12% of the United Nations budget, despite comprising 18% of the world population. We pay a disproportionately high share to serve nations who put their own interests first. This is demonstrated again in the Paris Climate Accord. In 2018, the United States led the world in cutting carbon emissions, while several other members didn't meet their commitments, putting their own economies first. Why should we choke our economies while other countries profit from isolationism? As expected, we are leading the world in the race for a vaccine, with five American companies in phase 3 trials. We are on track to crush records and produce a vaccine in an unprecedented timeframe. We find that this is attributable to America's unique free market economic environment. The United States is one of the few countries that resist pressures to regulate price controls on pharmaceutical companies and doesn't succumb to the misconception of cost. Politicians who slander pharmaceutical companies for selling a pill for $20 that costs $2 to manufacture don't account for the massive fiscal costs of years of research and trial and error. Attempts at watering down patent laws for pharmaceutical goods disincentivize scientific innovation. It would be unreasonable for a company to pay the costs of research and discovery when they could wait to use another company's unpatented formula, disincentivizing scientific innovation. Our refusal to succumb to these price misconceptions incentivizes scientific development and propels the United States to be the #1 producer of life-saving drugs, high-quality science, and other technologies. If we were in a globalist organization similar to the European Union's, other countries would undoubtedly exploit us for political influence, regulate our pharmaceutical companies, and thus disincentivize scientific development. These global governments delay scientific development, leading to higher costs of premature death and needless suffering. It is in the United States' best interest to take an isolationist approach and allow companies to produce a top-tier product in our unique economic environment and continue to act as a world leader for scientific development, rather than take a globalist approach and allow foreign countries to demonstrate international aggression that threatens our sovereignty.
Coronavirus has left countries, cities, and families extremely weak and fragile. It is seen that to come back from this, it will take almost everything we have, such as energy, money, and commitment. When choosing to ally with other countries, we are also taking on their specific troubles and could be stretching ourselves thin. Internationalism is increasing our dependence on other nations, along with creating a debt which leaves us in constant need of something from others and for help. Isolation, keeping to ourselves, focusing on our people, and prioritizing our homes is in this country's best interest and needs to be done first. Isolation helps cure COVID, so isolationism will help cure our country.
Okay, I think you hit just at 5 minutes there. So thank you to Team Affirmative. Great job starting us off there. We're now going to turn things over to Team Opposing. When you begin, you'll have 5 minutes on the clock. Please keep an eye on the chat for your time cues.
Thank you. I'm the representative for the opposing team. And this afternoon, we would like to talk about the negative side effects of isolationism. Specifically so, our negative past with isolationism and how it succeeds today during the current political crisis between our global stance between each individual country. So far, we've had one of our biggest examples of our negative past, World War II, when we self-isolated against that. Although it's not a big moral standpoint, but our reputation, especially in the history books, has been diminished, especially by our refusal to join the war sooner. Since Germany's position in the war was so overbearing and so morally and objectively wrong to American citizens and citizens around the world, we're given the controversial role as those who only want to go as isolationists, but we can change that. Instead of changing our past, we can change our future, especially with the COVID-19 crisis. The speed of the vaccine that we produce will help save money, lives, and save face. The speed of the vaccine specifically will help save money for not only us, but the rest of the country. With all these trials going on globally, with organizations like COVAX, they help regulate the system of trials and errors that the global discussion is proceeding with. But since we've declined to join this organization, we are one step behind. We have to survive by ourselves in building up a vaccine, but that does not support how we are currently living, because we cannot basically just face it by ourselves. We can't continue with this position as isolationists in this global economy. Specifically, the competition between China and the US. China joined the COVAX recently, and with political campaigns such as the campaigns for Trump and Biden, they hold strong either opposition or affirmative agreements with China, Biden being strongly against keeping our ties with Trump being closer, and Trump having this perspective of wanting to separate from other countries and just allowing for things to happen has not led to a positive outcome so far. Sean? You're on mute.
Hope that won't go to my score. All right. Well, I just want to kind of build off some of the things that Noah had started to say. Like he had mentioned, international cooperation is going to help the United States save lives, save money, and save face. I want to emphasize that because this is not just one single facet by which the United States will benefit from internationalism. It is something which reaches beyond multiple fields of the United States power and our domestic well-being. Starting off, just reiterating some of the things that Noah said about saving lives. Cooperation will speed up vaccine research. It simply makes sense that if you have many hands, the task is lighter. By opening up communication with other countries and sharing what we've found, we will go farther and we will go faster. Cooperation will also probably speed up production. Noah mentioned COVAX, and I just want to go a little bit more in detail about what COVAX is. It's an international organization planning to produce 2 billion vaccines within about a year, by the end of 2021. Now, it will not mean that the United States gets 100% vaccination by the end of 2021. Instead, it means that we will have the most vulnerable people across the world vaccinated. Now, the isolationist might be inclined to say, well, shouldn't we be caring more about our own people? Well, what is most important is saving lives, not whether they are American or European or wherever they come from. It is about saving lives, and focusing on national borders will only be a distraction from that. Moving on to saving money, like Noah said, we benefit when other economies are strong. They are our trading partners, and that has been the basis of American power since the end of World War II. And finally, saving face. The United States and China are currently in a great power competition, and our refusal to engage on the global stage has only left a vacuum for China to fill and to continue what our original team, what the affirmative team called coercion.
Okay, thank you. Just under the wire there with time. Well, thank you to both Team Affirmative and Team Opposing for starting us strong with opening statements. We're now going to move into the rebuttal section. So you'll have 10 minutes in the rebuttal before we come back to the main room to present your rebuttal speeches. So Eric, I'll have you send us back into our break.
About them being like, we need to all work together to make a vaccine. It's the thing that I talked about earlier, the lead stuff. So I found more information about it. Turns out their head of the head of their state food and drug administration was being bribed by manufacturers of defective medications that have been responsible for several deaths. So how do we know that's not going to happen again?
A couple points I had made. I think part of, like, if we're going to split the time between two people for the counter argument rebuttal, I think what we should do is have one person just deconstruct their argument and, like, take basis at, like, take jabs at them, and then have another person be like, well, while it may be this way, like, kind of yes but no. I think that would be the most effective way. And certain points I had made was the aid that the United States has always made during the never-ending European wars that just never stop, and that we did not refuse to aid the war. We actually had a Lend-Lease program aid to Britain, in which we gave $1 billion, and then afterwards we had the Marshall Plan, which we donated a lot of money to help rebuild countries that are still kind of at war with each other. But okay, I want to further discuss the fragility of the global economy. And then they started talking about US and China again. I said, while trade with China is really important, we don't want to trade with China when we're in a worse state than we are now. And post-COVID, we're going to have a lot of lost jobs. We're going to have a lot of people getting off welfare programs, and we need to rebuild those jobs, and we need to rebuild American industries. They also brought up the many hands point, and I said, it's kind of like moving a couch and you've got like 8 people there, and you have like a couple people trying to awkwardly fit in and really aren't even carrying anything to begin with. They're just kind of there. And I think that we can illustrate that as a problem with things like the UN, in which we don't have, to further our opening statement, where we donate 22% of the budget despite making up 5% of the American population, and then just reinforce rebuilding American jobs.
No, because you have so many like pretty good ideas, like it's basically jabs, like you said. I think it'd be great if you were one of our halves who at least spoke on the defense on what they had to say, because you have great points and I mostly agree with them as far as everyone is good with that. And then since we already have 2 documents pretty much written out, was that only on the opening statement that you guys wrote on, or?
I just, what I have is on
Right.
paper. I'm writing everything down,
Okay.
sorry.
What I have, I shared it. Like I copied and pasted it, and also the doc should be available for everyone to see. I would like to be the other half, if that's okay with everyone.
I would just love to hear what you would say, as like, because like he said, he's gonna basically defend on what they had to say, and you're just like the cleanup, like the you know, the ending of the second half of
I
the
heard
argument.
the first person, I think their name was Noah, make a case that because of isolationism, we allowed the horrors of Nazi Germany to happen. But I think they were a little flawed in this, because part of the biggest reason why we drew into isolationism and didn't want to get involved into World War II was because we felt like we were tricked into getting involved in World War I. So whoever is sharing should try to stress that point.
Okay, wait. So I was remembering, the directions were like rebuttal. You shouldn't introduce like new points. So I think maybe the 2 halves could be the rebuttal, like what Dylan said about, and also I like the thing about the Nazi Germany. Like I could put that in there, and then my thing would be specifically about the vaccines. And did we touch on the watered down patents in our opening statement? Sorry, I don't remember. Like, did we say that? The like lack of,
I'm not sure.
the like lack of competition in innovation in medicine in Europe. Can we talk about that?
Because I didn't realize that Ryan would have been reading, although like I'm on board that you read it. I just feel like it would have been like with for all that, like I feel like I could have read your document because I have it, and then I could have read what I had just to kind of smooth it out, and then we would have had more people to work with. So the next 2, I think you guys should like really try to figure out to divide it, because he ended up taking like a good 4 minutes, and then I had like the rest.
Yeah,
of the way.
I'll keep
That's-
track of my time. Anthony, make your point real quick.
I feel like when they were talking about Nazi Germany, I feel like they were being a bit disingenuous and arguing in bad faith. Because from the way I heard it from them, it almost sounded like they were trying to imply that we were just we're sympathetic to what the Germans were doing, that we were just letting them stomp over Europe so we can come in and colonize the rest of Europe. From what I heard, I believe that they were trying to imply that. And I just felt like it was just disingenuous, and that they were trying to say that we didn't do nothing to save Europe. We didn't do nothing to help Europe. You know,
Yeah.
We had the Lend-Lease program. We I think later on in the war, when Germany started invading the Soviet Union didn't have much supply, but we would fund them with clothing, vehicles, oil, horses, and the whole lot, right? So I feel like what they were doing was a bit just disingenuous and not, just arguing in bad faith.
Yeah, so I'll definitely keep track of my time, but did I just talk over somebody? I'm sorry.
No, I think it's reverb.
Oh, okay, cool. I just want to talk about the fragility of the economy, as well as I want to focus on like rebuilding America. I think that's why I'd like to use my 2.5 minutes. And then Olivia, what would you like to focus on?
I just really wanted to talk about the vaccine, man. That's all.
That's fine.
If you have anything you'd like me to add, like the bad faith Nazi argument that I can throw in, tell me.
This is just the last thing I'm going to say. Also, when they said that, that cooperation will speed up vaccine research and will speed up production, I feel like, because with that, they have to put a lot of money into research, and they're not going to be putting as much money into their economy, right? And because of that, if one of their weaker European neighbors were to fall into a recession like Greece would have had, then it would definitely put the rest of Europe at risk, and they would have to pull some funds away from the research to put it back into their economy to keep it built up. So that's
they gave us an extra 2 minutes. Okay. Well, okay. So what was the point about, like, should we directly rebut everything they said, or
Correct.
more just
I don't think we should be using, like, you shouldn't be using the counter argument to be like, oh, and what because then it seems like we really forgot to say something in our opening statement, and that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is take what they gave us and deconstruct it.
Okay. So I feel like, okay, so you're writing about the economy becoming less reliant on China. I can say something about that, just because I have stuff written down in like my own personal document about that. If you want, or if you feel like you've covered it, then that.
So we was getting many vaccines. Attack that. Okay.
Do you think there's a?
you
were gonna say something.
How? Sorry.
Yeah. How would you like us to attack that?
Oh,
by saying
because of the Australia thing, where they didn't share it. Okay.
Yeah.
I
kind of with that, and
that from
also.
your document?
I didn't have it.
Do you care if I steal that from your document?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want. There was just one last thing that I wanted to say, but I think it just slipped my mind.
Olivia, are you cool if I go first?
Oh, yes.
All right, cool.
Do you think it would be possible for us to pull off a straw man argument? To take one of their strongest arguments?
No,
not at all?
No.
Because that kid on the other team, Sean, they're going to put him in the closing, and he is going to rip whatever argument I make apart. We are best
Sean is
friends.
mean and
He
scary,
will destroy
so
me.
Don't disturb him.
Okay.
Who had something to say real quick? Please go.
I was just gonna say that they kind of said that we weren't going to get as many vaccines as if we would have just kind of like focused on ourselves. So I thought that was like a point that we could make, like that working with only America, we would get more vaccines than working with other people.
Yeah, so Olivia, just emphasize like we would focus on ourselves first, but we would be more than happy to profit.
Yeah, because they definitely said that with us,
unlike
to just
Australia,
but with internationalism, they said something about it's about saving lives, but we definitely be losing lives if you're not paying attention what goes home home first. I'm gonna say
Also,
home.
wait, sorry, we need manufacturing jobs so people can make the vaccine, right? Because we need people to be making that vaccine, and we have better FDA stuff. So Dylan, do you want to say that to segue into my point, or do you want me to say it? Yes?
Seconds.
Okay.
All righty, we are all back now for our rebuttal. We're going to have team opposing kick us off first for this round. So opposing, begin when you're ready.
So I would like to say first that like the top 5 like countries of COVID cases from like Europe, like they all work together. Like it's less than like the United States by itself. The United States have like 7.9 something million, almost 8 million, while the Europeans like only have 6.5 million cases. And also the death of like the United States is like, well, even though it's like less, but it's like makes up more than like the whole.
Okay. Yeah. So so for the other team, you guys touched a lot about China and how they're going to become a powerhouse because how China is going to be a powerhouse. Sorry. So for that, we wanted to respond how America would emerge as a global powerhouse if we were the first to take an internationalist standpoint. Because if we are the first to lend a helping hand to other countries, then we're going to be the leader for other countries. And that would also help us come up with a virus vaccine sooner. And you guys also said that other countries are benefiting from isolationism. Why should the US be left behind? Well, China actually sent a lot of PPE to other countries, like tons of it. And that was an internationalist standpoint that they took. I'm sorry, okay. A Chinese billionaire, actually Jack Ma, donated protective face masks to Europe and the United States. The first shipment contained 1 million masks and 500,000 coronavirus test kits. So that was an international standpoint that China took. Also, you guys also talked, sorry, okay. China has also joined COVAX, the only global effort to contain the virus as a way to improve the image of their country. So that means US should also join, that we can emerge as a global powerhouse. You guys also talked a lot about the economy. Now, if we are isolated and unable to trade, that would negatively impact our economy as well as other economies because we need our trading partners to economically boost the USA. For the thing that you guys said, why should the US be left behind? There's no proof that other countries are doing, that we are doing better than other countries, or they're doing better than us, or are faster in providing a vaccine. There's no proof of that. It's all just, yeah.
Opposing, have you concluded your time?
To conclude, basically, the US should take an internationalist standpoint to emerge as a global powerhouse. The economy would improve if other countries' economies were also improving. The US would not be left behind. They would actually be more powerful if they were to help other countries.
All right.
And
so
that's about it.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you so much, team opposing. Starting off our rebuttal section, we are now going to turn things over to team affirmative. You've got 5 minutes on the clock when you begin.
So no doubt is China a incredible powerhouse when it comes to the American economy. However, the problem America is currently facing right now is a 5 million job loss. And when countries finally recover and places like America can reopen, we need to devote all the money, energy we have towards rebuilding those jobs. And we cannot do that if we're also trying to maintain a very global stance. We cannot keep on putting ourselves in debt to a country like China just for the sake of, oh, our economy will be great. Our economy right now is doing terribly, and we need to get it at fine. We can't jump right from to amazing. We need that middle step, and we should focus on rebuilding America first instead of just appeasing to Chinese interest. And like we said in our opening statement, the global economy is incredibly fragile. The minute the Chinese government had started announcing COVID cases, weeks later, our economy was in ruins. And when it comes to how we contribute to a global unification system such as the UN, we do kind of put in more than our fair share at an incredibly different proportional rate, as we make up 5% of the population, yet we donate 22% towards the UN's budget. So what we need to emphasize after we recover from COVID is rebuilding the American economy so we can just sustain ourselves. And then we can focus on getting back into things and working with other countries. But we cannot fully do that to the best of our abilities until we ourselves are functioning at the best of our abilities.
I would like to segue from that into your guys' argument about the vaccine and how we all need to work together. Well, China attempted to conceal the COVID-19 pandemic, and by the time they admitted it was a dangerous reality, it was too late. It had already spread to the United States and has now ravaged the entire world. And can we really trust China to produce a safe and effective vaccine? Because in 2007, there was a horrific string of toy recalls from the United States, Canada, the EU, among other nations. Children were becoming dangerously ill from lead toys produced in China. There was lead in the toys. There was not supposed to be. And it was discovered that China's State Food and Drug Administration head was being bribed by manufacturers of substandard medications that many deaths had been attributed to. Why would we trust a country that has been proven to be untrustworthy when it comes to health regulations to produce a vaccine that will be injected into millions of our citizens? In fact, the pandemic actually, like the coronavirus, the virus itself came to be because of the complete lack of regulations in the wet meat markets in China, which remain unregulated to this day, even after the pandemic. How can we trust a country that has very little regulations on their manufacturing, on the food that they sell, and their heads of state in charge of people's health was bribed? Okay, I just don't think that we should be able to trust them to produce a vaccine for the entire world, much less the United States. And as Dylan mentioned, COVID-19 has left millions of Americans without jobs. So if we were to manufacture our own vaccine, we would boost our economy because we would be creating jobs. In conclusion, the argument that we need to work together to create a vaccine is faulty, because China, which has been leading the charge in developing a vaccine, has been proven to be unreliable when it comes to drugs, and the economy is suffering. And a better way to boost it than being reliant on China is to create our own manufacturing jobs.
All right. Thank you so much, Team Affirmative. We are now going to move into our final section of the debate, which is preparing our closing statements. So Eric, if you want to send us back into our rooms, we'll be there for 10 minutes before returning back here for closing statements.
Okay. So a lot of what you said was really good. and I think it really got our point across. So now we have to do our closing statement. So,
Oh, and Anthony, I saw your message, but and I was typing out a response when it like kicked me out.
yeah.
But I said I didn't want to just say something about it because I feel like it would come across like I just suddenly remembered it, like we're not organized enough to like have it written down.
All right, yeah, no, that's understandable. That's understandable.
Hey,
So what? Sorry, what you saying? Who said that?
I had a question for Olivia. You said one of the points you made is that we can't trust other countries to develop a vaccine for us, especially China. You brought up like stuff with lead and everything. Do you think we could? Do you think that argument is applicable for other developed countries and countries in Europe?
I don't know. I would have to real fast research that. So I could.
To add to that, China and Russia have skipped looking at the results from the phase 3 vaccine trials and have now started like distributing it. So that's also another reason that we shouldn't trust them because they haven't even looked.
Okay. So does anybody have any ideas of what should be our final statement or closing statement? Because and also just
we can't be reliant on.
Yeah, that the United States cannot be reliant on other countries to produce, or we can't rely on other countries to have, to keep our people safe.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, so Haley and Joe, while the last breakout is going on, I just wanted to let you know about our timing because we are just maybe like 3 minutes behind. So what we'll do right after the closing statements is some closing remarks. We'll put you two into a breakout room together. So you'll have about 5 minutes to compare notes and decide your winning team and any outstanding student debaters. But yeah, did you guys have any questions before I go back to the last breakout?
No, it's going really well so far. I'd say the one thing is neither team has really referenced their teammates. I think maybe only one person has done that. That's the only thing I would say. But yeah, I mean, it's highly entertaining. Some really good arguments on even fact patterns I don't agree with, but
I know.
you know what I mean. That's not the point of this, right? So it's to make a logical argument, and so yeah, looking forward to talking to Haley.
Right. Yeah, and I think
coming up with some names.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you can do before announcing the winning side is like give each side maybe some constructive feedback. So maybe like say like this is one of the strengths that you all had and one of the things that we saw and we really liked. I think it's good to kind of compliment them on the work that they've done. And obviously it's not easy to jump into public speaking with students you don't know and possibly a side of an argument that you don't believe in, right? So yeah, all right, I'll jump back into this last breakout room here, but we should be back, let's see, 4:32, so 4:42, yeah, about 4:42, we should be back here.
Okay.
All right, see you in a second.
Stagnate, the rest of the world's economy will also have a small trend of stagnation. So it's not guaranteed that if we work globally, our economy will go up. So let me just.
Okay, I think we should definitely craft a statement so that we're not kind of going off the cuff, just to sound more prepared. Yeah. Also, I do like Ryan's last sentence. I said it was a thick sentence. I mean that in a good way. It's like a beefy 5-layer burrito from Taco Bell. So, sorry, I'm trying to lighten the mood.
Oh, it's fine. So let me just write this.
I kind of think that it should be a little less on I'm gonna say hostility, basically saying how we don't need them or don't want to need them, and just a little more on how important it is to just really focus on ourselves before we need them, you know, because what I'm kind of getting from you, Anthony, that
Yeah, I
off the
know.
bat is like, we don't need you, or we don't want to need you because how it makes us look, when really the whole case is that give us a minute to build ourselves up to be okay before we can help you as much as we need you to help us.
Because just like this, sorry, the way I wrote mine, right, is I wrote it in the sense of, say, like you're a politician on a debate stage.
Okay.
Mine has very little statistics, but it has words that are supposed to emit emotions. So that's kind of how I wrote mine, rather than how writing with a bunch of data.
No, I understand that. I believe you kind of came in saying that. That's why I said, like, what I'm feeling from you is that you're trying to say, you know, back off type of thing.
Yeah.
When really, like, I feel like as we went through, our hope was we will need you at some point. Just give us a minute. So I think that should be kind of like more put in a little bit more than what you're trying to do.
So if I'm to reword this, there are many risks to accepting aid from other countries and relying on them. Or there's many risks to relying on many of other countries to protect our own citizens, because what those countries have is they have their own citizens' interests in mind.
Okay.
So I believe, we believe that an isolationist approach works the best within everybody's interest. That if we can focus on keeping our own citizens safe, we can limit the spread of the virus. And overall, when our country is deemed safe enough, we can then put a lot more funding into helping the international
in a way,
community.
like I feel like if you could, right when you hit the end, you can say, then we'd be willing to take that risk. Basically saying, like you're saying that you're describing that it is a risk, and then you're saying that once we're stable enough, we'd be ready to take that risk, you know, because we actually we can heal from it because we've already worked on
it. It is also the same mindset that the U.S. had before intervening in the Second World War. In the beginning of the war, they could not have handled it since they were in the midst of the Great Depression. And it took them years so that they could build up their economy once again by producing war materials before they were able to actually get into the war and have a meaningful impact in it.
Right, because you have to lose a little to get a little, but we don't have that little to lose. Right.
Yeah. There are many risks to rely on other nations.
I like that Olivia brought up earlier, the League of Muslims. It's funny that the United Nations, which is probably the most significant example of globalism there is, even the United Nations Human Rights Council fails to address anything that's going on in China.
Ryan, but they never way to make yourself louder, because I can't hear you.
Sorry?
Is there any way to make yourself louder? Because you've been getting quieter like as it goes on. I don't know if it's just me.
Could you guys hear me like now?
I can hear you, just sound very far away.
All right. I like the point Olivia brought up earlier about the Uyghur Muslims. I think it's funny that the United Nations, which is the most significant example of globalism there is, even the United Nations Human Rights Council never hesitates to call out our country for our human rights abuses, but it fails to address China's human rights abuses, which, I mean, it's well documented. Those are far worse than ours.
Speaking of which, the Human Rights UN's Human Rights Committee, they include members. They used to, matter of fact, include members who were actively engaging in human rights violations. Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and I think I can't really rename much off the top of my head. But there was a few other people there who were actively doing human rights violations while standing to affirm that every human is entitled to certain rights.
I don't know if we want to get into I don't know what it's called. I think it's a bad word. Oh, a peeing contest with them about whose human rights violations are worse. I don't know if that's such a great idea. I too like my point, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, considering we're going first, they're just going to bash us. So I think we got to ditch that point. If we were going second, by all means, but they have the opportunity to respond.
I would say mostly focus on the isolationism is not about becoming a powerhouse. It's about saving American lives
and taking.
I don't know.
Whoever's gonna be
Cause don't make us look super selfish and greedy. Like try to make us look more like we care about
that was
everyone.
a part of the argument, almost a bit too much, on how they kept saying that with our deal it'd be like look at ourselves first, when really it's just about trying to tend to our wounds before we go and help others.
Whoever reads whoever reads the closing, whoever's
Anthony, you're reading it, right?
Okay, does Team Affirmative, do you know who's speaking? I know we ended right when we had to come back in here.
Yeah, I'm the one who's speaking.
Okay, all right, awesome. Okay, so we are now going to have about 10 minutes for our last portion, our closing remarks. We're going to flip the order back again and have Team Affirmative start things off and followed by the opposing group. So Affirmative, whenever you're ready.
We believe that there are many risks to relying on other nations who have their own people's interests in mind. We believe that if our other countries and our own can focus on helping their own people, when our countries are back to a stable position, we can then put more of our funding into helping the international community. So it's a risk for us to rely on the international community because they could have leverage over us in terms of funding and being able to save the people of our country and of the world, right? And we believe that if we as a country cannot consolidate and build our foundation back, it doesn't matter what's going to happen in the short term, but in the long term, it will lead to us saving more lives and still being able to stay competitive with the rest of the world without having to fall into a a recession, right? And speaking of a recession, I just wanted to say for the other argument that what they said that when, sorry, I gotta kind of get this out of my head probably. That if we focus on the international approach, the economies will go up eventually, right? But that doesn't regard for the fact that if we cannot build up a solid base because our economy is so beaten down, when we get back into a post-COVID situation, our economy will be stagnating. And if our economy, which is one of the major economies of the world, if it stagnates, the rest of the global economy will feel that hit and start stagnating, and other countries will go into recession, and we'll fall into a situation similar to the Great Depression. So just to really conclude, we believe that isolationism is the only way in the long term to keep our citizens safe and to keep global cooperation and globalism in a stable position in which we can create a mutually beneficial world where everybody is able to cooperate and get things done. But we believe that isolationism is a stepping stone and that there's a risk to internationalism. But later on, when we are more prepared, we are willing to take that risk. And that's all that we have. Thank you.
Well, actually, one more thing to conclude. Just to summarize everything that we've been saying pretty much the whole time, it is in the United States' best interest to take an isolationist approach and allow pharmaceutical companies to produce a top-tier product in our unique economic environment and continue to act as a world leader for scientific development, rather than take a global approach and allow foreign countries to demonstrate international aggression that threatens our sovereignty.
Any last speakers for Team Affirmative? You have 2 minutes left.
Just to really, I don't know if I'm summing it up, but just to really put it in your head, because we feel as though that when the opposing was speaking, their ideals were that it was almost as if we were trying to be selfish or almost look at ourselves as maybe like a powerhouse, like we don't need you, when really it's we understand that we will need help. It's just at a point that if we help you, you're also going to need help in return, and that is not something that we have. So our first idea are to really just tend to our wounds and to make sure, like Anthony said, make sure that we are stable before we can commit to helping other countries, because they will need something. Yeah, they're going to need something from us as much as we need something from them. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Team Affirmative, for your closing statement. We're now going to have Team Opposing deliver their closing.
All right, I'm unmuted this time. I just want to start by talking a little about the history of isolationism. I think that America is an exceptional country, and that when we decide that we should retreat from the international stage, that we inevitably end up allowing for destruction and tragedy to ensue. I mean, we can look at our own history, our reluctance to enter into the international organizations that we created in the wake of World War I in hopes of preventing a repeat of that sort of catastrophe and ultimately leading to World War II. America First rallies held in the first half of the 20th century by Nazi sympathizers. And to be clear, I am not editorializing. They were Nazi sympathizers. They were advocates for the Nazi regime in Germany. They were contemporaries. And this has just followed through beyond into the post-war era. Our reluctance to prevent atrocities in Bosnia, in Syria, our outright refusal to prevent the killings of the Rohingya in Darfur, the Central African Republic, Katanga, Timor-Leste. The list goes on and on with names that most people would not even recognize. And I think that the absence of those names from our collective memory is perhaps the most somber testament to our failings, the failings of isolationism. And make no mistake that as many lives are on the line now as were then. The best case scenario for COVID-19 is 2 million dead. But unfortunately, it seems that the isolationist line is coming back in full force. I'll now give a little time for Mika to talk about some of the factual points which we believe were inaccurate made by the opposing argument.
John T. Mahanan from the Institute for National and Global Health said, and I quote, "The COVAX partnership could save American lives and ensure equitable access to a COVID-19 vaccine around the world." I feel as though that the opposing team stressed the fact that if we were to work by ourselves, that would be in the best interest of our country. But as of September, there have been 7.98 million cases of coronavirus in our country, in America. Our best interest is to cooperate with other countries and join in collaborations such as COVAX, so that when a vaccine is formed, that we would have access to that. And even if it's not solely an American thing and that not all Americans will have access to it at first, something's better than nothing.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we're not stressing the fact enough that COVAX isn't just China. It is just China and America. As of September 23rd, there were 156 countries involved with COVAX who all have a say in what goes on in coming up with a vaccine, and if a vaccine is made, what would happen in the COVAX distribution.
Absolutely. And I just want to continue on some of the points here. The affirmative argument claimed that American sovereignty is at risk. There's no evidence of that. This is the same argument that isolationists have brought up time immemorial, but it is simply not true. There is no language in the COVAX document which says that we're going to be changing our free market attitude towards healthcare, although I myself think that perhaps there should be. There have been claims that America will get the vaccine first. There is no evidence of this. Many countries are already running trials, and there is no reason to believe that America's will function any better. There's also been a claim that America has been exploited into globalism by China. This is complete historical revisionism. It was Nixon who went to China. It was America who, before that, engaged in the open door policy to force China's markets open to us. And mercantilism, the idea that for some reason we do not benefit from international trade, is an ideology which at least among respectable economists, has been dead for the last 300 years. Let's also, and of course, I want to reemphasize the point that Mika made, that China is not the #1 country leading the vaccine. We would not be beholden to their regulations. I just want to talk a second here about values to finish off. I think that implicit in the argument for isolationism is the idea that American lives are more important. We say no. We believe that no life is more important based off of its country of origin, and that our vaccine triage should reflect that.
All right, that would be the end of Team Opposing's time and the conclusion of our debate. So really just want to say thank you to everyone. This was really great. I know it is not hard to dive into debating, especially with students from other schools that you don't know, and possibly a side of an argument that you don't personally agree in. So thank you to everyone for your research and hard work. We're now going to have our judges join a breakout room so that they have some time to confer. And before we announce the awards for today, I think we have just a quick evaluation form for you all to fill out, which will also help to give us ideas for the next topic of the debate. We want you all to tell us what the next topic is that we should be examining. So Eric, okay, good. It looks like the judges are in their room. Eric, do you want to drop in the form in the chat?
Yes, so I'm going to drop in a Google Drive, a Google Forms link. Feel free to complete now or take some additional time after this is over to complete this short form. Should only take you a couple of minutes. We're looking for any and all feedback or advice that you have. We have a couple questions in there, but there is a catch-all question at the bottom where you can answer with just any thoughts that you had about the program. We are also particularly interested in what topics that you guys would like to debate in the future. So there's a question specific about topics that you think would be interesting to debate in the future. So that form, that link will be good for the next 24 to 48 hours. So feel free to complete now or as soon as we're done. Please do complete it. We do look for your feedback as much as possible to really enhance these programs as much as possible. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. That was an excellent debate. We'll have some awards to distribute in a couple of seconds, but I just wanted to say thank you. That was fantastic. And Kristen, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I was really happy to get to see was the teamwork on the back end. So obviously we saw the speeches on this end and the other side saw the speeches, but I was really impressed with the teamwork. A lot of students came with a lot of research already done and even some opening statements drafted, which definitely helped to move things along. And of course, it's not easy to kind of delegate responsibilities in a virtual environment, especially when you're under the time constraints that we gave you today. So I was really impressed by that as well. And I know our judges will have some feedback for you all once they jump out of their breakout. But if we have a minute or two before they join, Eric, I'd love to maybe just talk about programs we have coming up and encourage students to sign up for any of those.
Yeah, of course. So we have every month we're doing a speaker series. It's the last Wednesday of every month. It's free to join for these first couple of months. This month's topic is going to be the foreign policy platforms of President Trump and Vice President Biden as we lead up to the election. So that program is going to be on Wednesday, October 28th at 3:30 p.m., I believe. And more information can be found on our website. We'll drop a link into the chat in a couple seconds. But that is a webinar, so you're able to join at home for that. So that's Wednesday, October 28th. In addition, we have our International Student Summit coming up in December. That's our intensive simulation program that will be exploring the idea of restarting the global economy post-COVID-19. So not only how do we get our economies, the global economies, back up and running, but how do we redesign the global economic system to be more just and fair and equitable to people around the world. So there's both a restarting and a reimagining of the global economic system that we think is going to be very interesting. If you have any questions about that, you should contact your faculty advisor for your World Affairs Club, or you could reach out to us directly about ways to participate in that program. Really excited about that program. Again, that is December of 2020, so coming up in a few months. Yeah, so Kristen, is there any other programs that we should highlight at this time?
Yeah, I just dropped into the chat the link to the speaker series page for October International Student Summit. And last but not least, a new partnership that we have for high school students through an organization called iThrive Games. If you know anything about game development and role-playing games, this is really the kind of combination of our legacy simulation programs and role-playing online. So if you're interested, we have a scenario simulation called Lives in Balance, where students can role-play being the governors of southwestern states that are interested in reopening their economies during COVID to sports. So you actually, through a web interface, get to kind of step into the shoes of a policymaker, and you're given, a character sheet. You're also given news alerts, and there's like a Chirp Twitter feed, which releases information throughout the game. But it's a really unique experience if you're interested in getting a little bit more practice with your public speaking in, I think, a really kind of fun setting while we're all kind of doing this distance learning thing. And of course, our webinars. I don't want to forget to mention that the council has its typical speaker events turned into webinars as well. So you can attend those from home as well. We have some interesting folks lined up for October and November and December so far.
I'll also note that our next debate series that we're going to do is actually not going to be for a little while. It'll be in February 2021. So we're going to concentrate on our speaker series and the upcoming International Student Summit in December. And the next debate series will be in February 2021. We don't have a topic selected. So once again, if you are completing that form, we really do follow your feedback and suggestions as we direct our programming for the next couple of months. So yeah, again, we really thought that this went fantastically, and we really would like you all to join us again for our February program.
Yep. Do we have our judges back just yet? I think they're still deliberating, right?
Yes. Do you want me to jump in and see their progress, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll be back in 1 second.
Any questions about our upcoming programs? Can we? Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you have an idea for a debate, a future debate topic now, please let us know. We'd love to hear.
Okay, so I wrote down basically just focusing on what happens to our elders and how they're supported after they've retired and really just given so much to our country. Because I've kind of noticed, or at least like when you read on certain things and you just kind of look at how I guess the society system goes through, everyone's really just focused on what we can contribute while we're young and while we have like, a little energy in our step, or really just can be worn out. And then once you there's a lot of businesses where, if you're too old, you're no longer of any interest. And that concerns me because, as you get older, you become wiser, you may have more energy. Everyone becomes that certain ideal person for them at any age. And especially I don't like when it comes to almost as if people, when you're old enough, you really have to depend on your family to take care of you when they're at the age to really focus on their family. So you could become a burden when you're at an age when you need people, So I really feel like the government, I feel like it's a global issue. I feel like it's an issue that needs to be focused on because we all come of a certain age where we're just too dependent and we're not really listened to anymore. And I think it's when we're considered elderly.
Yeah, and I think I saw in the chat a question about are debate topics restricted to global issues? No, but we will definitely aim to encourage some sort of research by way of global, research. So, Destiny's topic mentioned seniors, possibly veterans, right? Maybe older veterans and how to kind of take care of them. We could look at other countries and how they're doing and maintaining, taking care of their elders during this time. and kind of compare, right, and contrast America with other countries. So that's a great topic idea. I love that. And I'm glad you've kind of shared that. Paris Climate Accord. So that's really interesting. So talking a little bit about even just climate change, I think there could be a lot of topics related to climate change and rejoining the climate accord or not rejoining. I think there's a lot of interesting debate around that right now. And yeah, Destiny, to talk about your topic too. It's funny, I just today got a call that I got selected as a poll worker on election day. And I thought that was something really important to do with regards to everything going on with our seniors right now, who are the most vulnerable and who serve in these positions, you know, year after year, election after election. And a lot of them can't do it right now. And my poll location called me and said, we need you, we absolutely do need you. So it's funny that you mentioned that as one of a potential topic. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, it looks like we have our judges back in the room. We are running right up against time here, so we'll just have our judges, if you don't mind, announcing the winning team as well as our recipients of Outstanding Debater for both teams, and if there were honorable mentions on both teams as well.
Sure, Haley, you want me to start?
I'm fine with either.
Okay. First of all, you know, really nice job, both teams. This was actually an incredibly tough decision for us. Some comments overall. I think neither side did a great job talking about, you know, referencing, hey, as my colleague said or my teammate said, sort of reinforcing each other's points. I thought that was a missed opportunity. Because that was, you know, announced as part of the criteria. Really felt that the affirmative side the argument was very clear, easy to understand, very concise points, and you did a nice job of kind of repeatedly hitting those points. And so it was just really strongly done. On that side, but I'll let Haley talk about, you know, the rebuttal phase.
Yeah, so I think what the opposing side did really, really well is that you guys were able to cite what the other team had said much more often, and were a little bit better at saying this is what the opposing side said and breaking down those arguments with your own evidence and your own argument. So because of that, I think me and Joe came to the conclusion that the winning team is the opposing team. But both of you guys did a really good job, and it was fun to watch. So
yeah, the one other comment I would make is the closing for the negative was really strong. And given that we had a really tough time with this, I think on a technicality, really, you know, the fact that the rebuttal addressed these specific issues that the other side made, I think that was kind of the tipping point for us. But great job by both teams. Really strong close by the negative side, and then we had some outstanding debaters. Maybe I'll take the affirmative side. And I'd like to point out Ryan Hansali did a really nice job. And honorable mention, I think I'd like to go to Olivia. I thought Olivia, very good points, very well spoken. Maybe just watch the pace a little bit. You could tell that there's a lot of passion there, but nice job on that side. Everybody did great, so it's hard to just single out a couple people, but we were asked to do so. And then yeah, Haley.
And then for the opposing side, we thought the outstanding debater was Sean. So Sean, nice job. That was really good. And then we also wanted to say honorable mention for Mika. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But like, again, you guys all did such a good job, and it was hard to pick, and I'm very impressed with you. I don't think I could have done this in high school, so good job.
Yeah, it was really great. I actually did some of this in high school, and I've been around it, and this is extremely well done.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much. And thank you to our judges. That was definitely not an easy task we gave you to do today with all of our students. So we thank you for your time and for taking the chance to observe today. And again, thank you to all of the students who participated. I know we kind of started a little discussion about debate topics for the next program, but I look forward to seeing your evaluations and hearing how we can make the program better and choose the next topic for the next program.
Absolutely. And just a quick note on awards, we'll be sending out digital copies of awards via email, and we will get in touch with your faculty advisors about sending out physical awards to you guys, either to your schools or home addresses. So just be on the lookout for those for our award winners. And thank you again for participating. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see you at the next one.
Bye.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this, though I felt maybe a little bit like I had maybe prepared in a different type of way, because the way I wrote it, right, I wrote it as if I was a politician on the stage with just kind of explaining, right? So instead of, because I heard there was a lot of statistics, right?
Yeah.
My speech had a lot of emotions in it. So when I was reading it, it was supposed to come out as supposed to rile you up, supposed to make them more productive. And that was kind of what I had in mind.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it didn't really end up well as I thought it would. And for the second part, I got kind of caught off guard because I wasn't expecting to really be bombarded with a lot of intellectual facts, since myself, I'm not the best at taking research, or I'm not the best at more intellectual things, but I'm really good at like speaking and trying to persuade people.
Yeah.
When all that stuff happened and I saw I was going against seniors, I knew right there that there was no way I would win that, but I would have to hold my own against it.
Sure.
So I believe that I think I did pretty good myself. Yeah. And I think it's going to help, especially right now, because this is a learning experience, because my overall career plans is I want to talk to my representative from the House and see if I can work under him as a mentor, so that eventually I can work my way up that chain so I can become either the mayor, governor, and then eventually president. So I'm more focused on my speaking skills rather than really like intellectual things, because I believe in a meritocratic type of way where I give people who are really good at that task those certain types of tasks. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely will be attending next time. But this time, when I'm coming up, I definitely will be a lot more prepared for it than I was this time.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Anthony, I thought you did a phenomenal job in our breakout. You have a natural leadership skill. Your ability to delegate and to kind of work the room in a way that is diplomatic, and not like bossy or anything, was really impressive. And I think that definitely speaks to your skills, and, you're only going to get better over time.
Yeah.
And there's adults that spend a lot of money trying to get trained on these things. So don't feel like,
And I think I did, because a lot of them are seniors and I'm only a freshman, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like I did pretty good, since I take a lot of inspiration from political figures in the past, such as Huey Long, Washington, and just a few others on how they did it. I liked Huey Long style because in the beginning I wanted to go semi-aggressive to kind of get it rolling, so people were like motivated to succeed. But then I allowed them, at least I was okay with them, like sharing their own things and all that, because I believe like how Washington established his stuff. He could have done it as a one-party dictatorship, right? But he established it as a cabinet, since he said no one man knows everything. So I believe I really enjoy delegating, connecting with them, because it allows me to grow as a person and to grow my own skills for use in the future, right? And even then, I still have a lot of plans for this year. I'm just gonna go through real quick and just explain it. I want to form a student union in my own school that at least get my name out there and help everyone else in that school and those students. And at least my dream would be at least to cover a few schools in the city.
Wow.
So that there's some influence there, so that every student has a chance and an opportunity to succeed because of the actions that I'm willing to take to get that across. while still benefiting everyone, including the teachers and the administration, with funding from the school district by constantly bringing in incentivizing, which is something that I was trying to say a lot, but I just couldn't remember it, incentivizing the district to put more funding into our schools because our schools are so underfunded. So
Yes.
that's
Yes,
where
yes,
my
yes.
that's where my main like stuff is really at. But when it comes to like debating, especially on intellectual topics, I think this is the first debate that I've really ever went to.
Wow, sure.
I'm really glad to have been here, since it was a learning experience that I definitely will not forget and will always keep in my mind. So I would like to thank you for hosting it.
Well, Anthony, you should be proud of your efforts today. It's not easy to stand up in front of a group of people, especially, there were a lot of seniors here, and you mentioned you were a freshman. You should be proud of your efforts. And we encourage you to keep using these skills that you have and keep building them also. Join us for these debates. Reach out to other organizations at your school that might partner with your school, and just, try and get out there and practice and hone those skills as much as possible.
All right, thank you. I have to go now.
I'll say a very quick note. I didn't know you were a freshman. I didn't check the list of students and their grades, just the schools. So I wouldn't have known that unless you told me today. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
I appreciate everything you've done, and I'll talk to you the next time I join one of these debates.
Okay, that sounds good, Anthony. We'll
have
see
a
you
great weekend and have a great quarantine, I would say.
Thank you. You too.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, hilarious. He's Bodine, actually, I think.
That's the student from Bodine?
Yeah, Anthony Gonzalez. Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, that's the Bodine student. He's a freshman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's the student from Bodine. I totally forgot that his name was Anthony.
I was like looking it up right at the end, and I was like, oh yeah, he is our Bodine student. So yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely utilize him for our program.